In the US, snowy and icy winter conditions contribute to hundreds of thousands of vehicle crashes each year. Over 100,000 crashes reported just in 2025, resulting in thousands of injuries. Because maintaining traction in these conditions is critical, Pewag offers us a solution. These chains are constructed from solid steel links measuring just over 1/8 of an inch thick, with reinforced traction bars positioned across the tire. Working together, these features significantly improve grip on snow and ice. To protect vehicle components, a built-in rim protection system prevents metal parts from rubbing against alloy wheels. In addition, a mechanical ratchet system automatically maintains proper chain tension while driving, eliminating the need for frequent stops and manual adjustments. All components are manufactured in the European Union and comply with recognized safety and performance standards. One of the main things people notice is how the chains sit only on the outside of the wheel. Modern cars often don't leave much space behind the tire, and this system avoids that area completely. All the parts stay on the front side of the wheel, and the chain connects directly to the existing lug nuts or wheel bolts. That means nothing has to be pushed or fed behind the rim. Putting them on is fairly simple. You lay the chain over the tire from the front and engage the ratchet. Once the vehicle starts moving, the chain pulls itself into position and keeps the tension where it needs to be. If roads always behaved the way they do on maps, off-road vehicles would not need much help. In reality, many roads look more like they were negotiated with nature rather than built, and tires often lose that argument pretty quickly. That is where tracked movement starts to make sense. This system works by swapping a vehicle's regular wheels for track units. Instead of relying on a small contact patch like a tire does, the track spreads the vehicle's weight over a much wider area. That simple change helps the vehicle keep moving through mud, snow, without digging itself into trouble. The power still comes from the vehicle's original drivetrain, but it is delivered through a rotating rubber track guided by several rollers. The frame absorbs impacts and twisting forces that come from uneven trails and constant off-road use, while the rollers keep the track aligned as it moves. Stalker Track takes a fairly restrained approach to this idea. Rather than adding complicated mechanisms, the focus is on using well-known tracked principles and adapting them to regular off-road vehicles. The company offers different versions of the system to match different vehicle sizes. The Hansa model fits lighter SUVs and utility vehicles. The Oilman covers mid-weight platforms, and the Polar version is intended for heavier vehicles. These versions correspond to vehicle weights of about 4,400 pounds, 6,600 pounds, and up to roughly 7,700 pounds. Prices start at $6,300. If the rear axle sinks and the wheels start spinning in the air, that's a sure sign your road trip is turning into a walk. The Ridge Rider Airbag Jack is an unusual kind of jack that can help save the day. It can lift up to about 6,600 pounds and reach close to 31 inches at full height. Instead of metal arms or hydraulic parts, it uses a thick rubber airbag that fills with air. You inflate it using an air compressor, or, on some setups, by routing air from the vehicle's exhaust. You just slide the deflated bag under a solid lift point on the vehicle. Once air starts flowing in, the bag expands and slowly pushes the vehicle upward. Because the bag spreads out as it lifts, the weight of the vehicle is shared over a large area. When you're finished, you let the air out little by little, and the vehicle settles back down. A small metal jack can dig into the surface, but the airbag stays more stable because it presses against the ground over a wider area. It also lifts high enough to slide traction boards into place, clear packed dirt from around a tire, or change a wheel during a recovery. SUVs aren't the only vehicles that can find themselves in tough spots. Cars with front or rear wheel drive can also end up off the road and stuck in tricky situations. The problem is that the average passenger car doesn't have any obvious points on the body where a winch can be attached. To solve this common issue, Australian engineers have developed a clever solution called the bush winch. Instead of mounting to the chassis, this device clips directly onto the vehicle's wheel. Rather than relying on an electric motor, it uses the vehicle's own engine and drivetrain, allowing it to operate in either forward or reverse. As long as there is sufficient wheel clearance and a compatible bolt pattern, the bush winch can be set up on many different vehicles. What makes this system different is how it pulls. The drums attach directly to the wheel hub using the supplied fasteners. When the vehicle moves slowly in low gear, the wheel rotates the drum and the rope wraps around it. As the rope tightens, it pulls the vehicle toward a solid anchor point, like a tree or a ground anchor. The drums themselves are stiff but not brittle. They can flex slightly when under heavy load, which helps absorb shock and reduces the chance of sudden breakage. The synthetic rope is strong and doesn't stretch much, so it doesn't store a lot of energy. If something goes wrong, that lower stretch helps limit snapback. The rope length also gives more options for where to place an anchor, especially in open areas where anchor points are farther apart. This traction tool uses steel gripper plates made from Canadian steel, along with strong nylon and steel ratchets. You get 2 units in a set, meant to go on one drive axle. They fit many truck and SUV wheels without needing anything vehicle specific. Putting them on doesn't take long, usually a couple of minutes per wheel. The full set weighs around 11 pounds. Each steel plate is about 7 inches long and sits roughly 1.7 inches tall when placed under the tire. They're only meant to be used at very low speeds and come off once the vehicle is moving again. If you've ever been stuck spinning your tires in snow or mud, this kind of setup makes a lot of sense. Instead of wrapping something around the whole tire, it gives the tire one solid point to push against. You place the steel plate on the ground where the tire needs grip, and then loop the strap around the wheel so the tread presses directly onto the plate. When you're stuck, you slide the plate either in front of or behind the drive tire, depending on which way you're trying to go. Changing a tire on the side of the road can feel stressful, especially if it's dark out. This electric jack system turns that job into something much easier. Instead of pumping a handle over and over, you plug it into your car's power source and let the motor do the lifting. It can lift vehicles up to 11,000 pounds and runs on a 12-volt connection, either from the battery or the cigarette lighter. The jack lifts from about 6 inches up to 17 inches, which works well for most cars, SUVs, and light trucks. For more, the power cable is long enough to reach around the vehicle without much hassle. Once it's in place, you press a button, and the jack raises one corner of the car in around 2 minutes. When it reaches the top of its range, it shuts itself off, so you don't have to guess when to stop. The lifting head has grooves that help it sit firmly against the lift point, and the hydraulic system moves in a controlled, predictable way. What makes this unit especially handy is that it also includes a tire inflator. After swapping the wheel, you can inflate the tire right away, without digging out another tool. The inflator pushes air at about 1.1 cubic feet per minute. There's a small display that shows the pressure as you go, so you know when to stop. This small tool runs on a regular drill. It comes in 2 versions, one that can pull up to 500 pounds using about 30 feet of wire rope, and another that can handle up to 750 pounds with roughly 40 feet of rope. You connect your drill to a 5/16" drive shaft, and the drill's rotation is what turns everything inside. There's a drum that holds the rope, a set of gears that increase pulling force, a clutch you turn by hand, a rope guide to keep things lined up, and a hook for attaching to whatever you're moving. Using it is pretty easy to understand once you see how the clutch works. When the clutch is disengaged, the drum spins freely, so you can pull the rope out by hand and get it where you need it. Once the rope is attached to a load or anchor point, you engage the clutch. At that point, squeezing the drill trigger starts pulling the rope back in. Because the drill controls the speed, you can move things slowly and make small adjustments. One of the biggest differences compared to larger winches is that this one doesn't rely on a vehicle battery or a fixed power outlet. As long as you have a drill, you can use it in a garage, a workshop, or on a job site where power options are limited. It feels more like an extension of a tool you already know than a separate machine you have to learn from scratch. The way next one works is pretty simple. Power comes straight from the vehicle's battery, spins the motor, and the gears slow that motion down so the drum can pull with more force. At its limit, it can pull up to 3,500 pounds, enough to help recover lighter vehicles or snowmobiles. Everything sits inside a steel box that measures roughly 17 by 11 by 8 inches and weighs around 44 pounds. It's sealed to an IP67 level, so dust and temporary water exposure aren't a big issue. In real use, this is the kind of tool you bring along when you don't want or can't have a winch permanently mounted. You keep it in the vehicle and take it out only when you need it. When traction disappears in mud or snow, it becomes a way to pull you free without waiting for help. The steel box does more than store the winch. It also gives it a solid base so you can set it down and use it without extra hardware. The system kicks in fast, usually in about 2 seconds. It works best when there's around 4 to 8 inches of snow on the road. You can turn it on while driving between roughly 5 and 25 miles per hour, and you can shut it off at any speed. It helps whether you're moving forward or backing up. There are 2 chain setups. One uses 6 strands and works well once you're moving a little faster. The other uses 12 strands, which means the chains hit the road more often and still work when you're crawling along at very low speeds. The chains themselves are made from hardened steel with square-shaped links that hold up better over time. The system also includes coated air cylinders, sealed parts to keep road chemicals out, grease points to reduce wear, and chain strands that can be replaced one at a time if one gets damaged. A standard setup for one axle comes with the air cylinders, brackets made to fit the vehicle, hardware, air lines, wiring, and a switch inside the cab. Winter roads don't always give you time to prepare. Ice can show up suddenly, and pulling over to put chains on by hand isn't always safe or practical. This system is meant for those moments when traction disappears without warning and you need help right away without stopping. The hardware sits near the drive wheel. When you flip the switch, an air cylinder pushes a spinning hub toward the inside edge of the tire. As the tire turns, it spins that hub. The chain strands swing outward and pass under the tire where it meets the road. Each time they hit the ground, they add extra grip on ice or packed snow. When you turn the system off, everything pulls back up and clears the road. Situations where vehicles get stuck often happen in wide, open areas where there is nothing obvious to hook a winch line to. This system works by spreading force over a large surface instead of depending on hard edges or fixed hardware. Because it is soft, it can shape itself around what is available, whether that is soil or a tree, and avoid sharp pressure points that can damage equipment. This recovery anchor weighs less than 5 pounds and uses a soft setup instead of metal parts. At the center is a thick vinyl tarp reinforced with a ripstop layer, connected to 2 wide webbing straps. The straps are made from the same type of material used in industrial lifting. Each one can handle very high pulling forces on its own, and when both are used together, the load is shared across 2 paths. That setup also adds a backup element, since force is never carried by a single strap alone. When it is buried in soil, it holds by using depth and resistance from the ground itself. How well it works depends on the type of soil, how deep it is placed, and the direction of the pull. In soft sand, burying it about 2 feet deep may hold roughly 2,500 pounds. Going deeper, closer to 3 feet, can raise that number to more than 6,000 pounds. In dune testing, pulls reached just over 8,000 pounds before stopping, and the anchor stayed in place. A memorable adventure starts when your off-road vehicle sinks into the mud up to the bottom. If you don't have a winch, there's only one way out: tossing boards under the wheels. After 100 tests, the folks at Exitrax figured that, in the 21st century, it's time to swap wooden boards for something more advanced. They are available in 3 different lengths, depending on how much space you have and what kind of situations you expect to deal with. The shortest version is about 36 inches long. The mid-size one is roughly 43, and the longest reaches around 45 inches. No matter the size, each set weighs close to 11 pounds. The 2 smaller versions are made from polypropylene, while the longest one uses reinforced nylon. The way these boards work is pretty simple. When a tire gets stuck in sand, mud, snow, or loose dirt, you slide the board under the driven wheel. Instead of the tire spinning and digging a deeper hole, it grips the board and climbs forward. The raised patterns on top help the tire hold on, while the teeth underneath press into the ground to help keep the board from sliding backward when power is applied. The shortest boards make sense if storage space is tight, like in smaller vehicles or crowded cargo areas. Even though they're shorter, they use the same traction layout as the longer boards. The mid-size option gives you more length to work with, which can help when a tire has sunk deeper or when the surface is softer. The shape of the channels on this version helps spread the vehicle's weight more evenly as the tire rolls onto it. The traction system works in a pretty simple way. 2 sand tanks sit near the rear wheels, and when the tires start slipping, sand is dropped right in front of them. The driver controls this from inside the cab, so it's only used when it's actually needed. The sand comes out at a steady pace, about 2 pounds per minute, which is enough to help the tires grab the road again. This setup is meant for trucks that have open space on the frame and are driving on snowy roads. The suspension system is separate from the sand setup. Instead of relying on stiff springs all the time, it uses hydraulics to raise or lower the vehicle with the push of a button. At full extension, the vehicle can lift about 13 inches. To keep things feeling normal behind the wheel, mechanical parts keep the body centered over the axles as the height changes. The system works with body-on-frame vehicles like pickup trucks. Together, the sand delivery system and the adjustable suspension offer practical ways to deal with slippery roads. Warrior Winch's Trojan is a true game changer. It reimagines the traditional ATV setup by moving away from a fixed front bumper winch. The Trojan's biggest advantage is its portability. Everything comes neatly packed in a single box, including the electric reel and the rope. It can pull up to 4,000 pounds on the first layer of rope. Inside, it runs through a planetary gear system, which helps turn motor power into pulling force. There's a manual clutch that lets you free the rope by hand when you need to pull it out, and a mechanical brake that automatically holds the load when you stop powering the motor. The drum itself is fairly compact, measuring about 2 inches in diameter and just over 3 inches wide, and the whole unit fits into a space roughly 20 by 12 by 8 inches. You can choose between a synthetic rope that's about 49 feet long or a steel cable around 42 feet long. How it performs depends a lot on the load. With no load, the rope moves fairly quickly, at about 14 feet per minute, and doesn't draw much current. As the load increases, the speed drops, and the electrical draw climbs. At the full 4,000-pound pull, line speed slows to around 5 feet per minute, and current draw approaches 190 amps. Like most drum winches, pulling power drops as more rope wraps around the drum, so letting out more line helps when the pull gets demanding. You can't imagine a more amazing tool than the Stealth Shovel. It measures about 19 inches long and weighs between 25 and 27 ounces, so it's easy to carry. The blade is made from carbon steel and is around 2 millimeters thick. It has a wide scoop shape and 3 sharpened edges, which makes a noticeable difference once you start using it. The idea behind it is pretty simple. Instead of doing only one job, it handles several tasks without needing extra parts. When digging, the sharpened edge helps it bite into hard soil with less effort. If you hit roots, the side edges can slice through them instead of forcing you to stop and switch tools. The top edge is useful for scraping or cleaning up the sides of a trench or hole. The steel feels tough without being brittle. It can take repeated contact with dense soil, small rocks, and roots without bending out of shape, and it can be sharpened again when needed. The blade is solid, not hollow, so the force from each strike transfers cleanly through the handle. The blade has rounded teeth, designed to crush ice and frozen ground. The steel shovel is a must-have for any off-road vehicle, ATV, or snowmobile. With a shovel this cool, who even needs? It's priced at $134. Think of this as a backup plan for when you're stuck and there's nothing around to hook a winch to. The ground anchor prototype from Trax is an early-stage recovery tool meant for ATV and UTV situations where there are no trees or other vehicles nearby. It's still a work in progress, so not all the final numbers or limits have been shared yet, but the idea itself is pretty clear. It's a steel anchor that goes into the ground and gives you a solid point to pull from. You set it into the soil using leverage or basic tools, leaving a connection point above ground. Once the winch line or strap is attached, the pulling force presses the anchor deeper into the soil instead of lifting it out. As long as it's lined up properly and there's enough soil depth, it holds by using the ground itself to resist the pull. This prototype lines up with what Trax has been doing for years. They focus on practical equipment for people who use ATVs and side-by-sides as working tools, not toys. A ground anchor makes sense in that world, since getting stuck in the wrong spot can slow down an entire day's work. Tire pressure makes a big difference in how well a vehicle handles different types of roads. When tire pressure is high, the tires become more rigid and the contact area with the ground is reduced. This can be beneficial on smooth roads, where it helps minimize rolling resistance and improve handling. However, on soft or uneven surfaces, that same rigidity can reduce traction and negatively affect performance. To address this, German designers have developed a system that allows the pressure in all tires to be adjusted at once. The system consists of hoses and cylinders mounted directly to the vehicle's frame and can be installed in about 5 minutes. The system is built to function reliably in extreme conditions, from temperatures as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit to as high as 158 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can withstand water crossings. Air flows quickly through the tire valves, reducing the time needed to inflate or deflate the tires. The main control units are made of steel and are available in 2 sizes: a larger standard box and a much more compact version. There is also an option that allows drivers to select from 4 preset pressure levels. In real-world use with large truck tires, the system can lower pressure across all tires in just a few minutes and reinflate them in less than 10 minutes. Everything runs on compressed air, with no electrical parts involved. Most vehicles supply that air through their existing brake system, using a priority connection, so braking still comes first. If a vehicle doesn't have its own air supply, an external compressor can be used. Meet the world's first friction pulley for winching, complete with a patented retention feature. This pulley is a great alternative to traditional heavy-duty pulleys and is designed exclusively for use with ropes. It works in combination with a soft shackle and is compatible only with synthetic winch rope measuring between 5/16 inch and 1/2 inch. The pulley handles loads up to 22,000 pounds, and the entire unit weighs approximately 21 ounces. Instead of relying on a spinning wheel with bearings, the rope slides smoothly over a ring treated with a Teflon-based coating to reduce friction. Inside the groove, small rubber inserts help prevent the rope from popping out if tension momentarily drops. When you're using a winch for recovery, a pulley like this helps manage how force is applied. It can change the direction of the pull or help split the load so the winch doesn't have to work as hard. This model takes a simpler approach than traditional pulleys by skipping moving parts altogether. One of the more interesting details is how it handles slack. During a recovery, the line doesn't always stay tight. Vehicles shift, tires break free, or the setup needs to be adjusted. When that happens, rope can jump out of a pulley groove. If it gets pulled tight again while misaligned, the fibers can get damaged fast. The rubber inserts in the groove are there to help guide the rope and keep it in place during those brief moments. In a typical setup, a soft shackle connects the pulley to an anchor point. The winch line runs through the ring and either changes direction or loops back to the vehicle to create a 2-to-1 pull. Since the ring doesn't open, the rope has to be threaded through during setup, which fits naturally with soft shackle use. There are other versions of this pulley that follow the same idea, just scaled differently. Smaller ones are available for ATV and UTV winches, while larger models exist for heavier equipment and thicker synthetic rope. The basic operation stays the same across all of them. The device is priced at $115. This winch pulls using a motor, gears, and a drum, wrapped with 40 feet of synthetic rope. The whole setup weighs about 8 pounds. Inside, a 3-stage planetary gear system boosts the motor's force, and an automatic disc brake holds the line in place when you let go of the control. The motor and contactor are sealed to help deal with water and dirt, and there's a clutch that lets you pull the rope out by hand before starting a pull. Depending on the kit, you control it with either a corded hand remote or a switch mounted on the vehicle, and it connects straight to a 12-volt battery with the included cables. The idea behind it is simple. It's something you bring along when you think you might need help pulling yourself out. Instead of being bolted onto one machine forever, it can be moved between different bikes. You hook it to a solid anchor point using a strap, connect it to a battery, and use it only when the situation calls for it. When it's working, electricity turns the motor, the gears increase the pulling force, and the drum winds the rope in under control. When you stop pressing the switch, the brake kicks in and hold everything where it is, rather than letting the load slide back. Think of this as something you keep around for the moments when your vehicle suddenly won't move. These traction devices come in different versions, so they work for everything from pickups and SUVs to commercial trucks that weigh well over 30,000 pounds. The smaller sets use aluminum claws and strong ratchet straps, while the bigger truck versions use steel parts and heavier straps. Putting them on doesn't take long. Most people can get one attached to a wheel in about a minute, and the best part, you don't have to take the tire off. What they do is pretty simple. Truck claws strap directly onto a drive wheel and sit against the tire tread. When the wheel starts turning, the claws push into snow, ice, mud, or sand. That extra bite gives the tire something to work against, so the vehicle can move forward instead of just spinning. On lighter vehicles, the aluminum claws have a bit of give, which helps them stay in contact with the ground without bending. On heavy trucks, the steel versions handle much higher force and weight. Everything tightens down with built-in ratchets, so you don't need extra tools or special equipment. In real conditions, they tend to work best right when traction is gone. On snow and ice, they grab quickly when tires slide. In mud or sand, they dig in and help reduce wheel spin so the vehicle can climb out. Here we have another traction tool. It comes in 3 lengths, 46, 58, or 70 inches, and all versions are about 9 inches wide. Depending on the size, each one weighs between roughly 6 and 10 pounds. When used for leveling, each folding section adds close to an inch of height, so stacking a few panels can raise a tire by about 3 to 4 inches. The structure can handle very heavy vehicles when used this way. It's made from a tough plastic blend that stays flexible in very cold weather, down to about -35 degrees Fahrenheit, and the panels are connected with steel hinge pins. Both sides of the panels have molded grooves for traction, and some sections include a smooth side to help slide the tool into position under a tire. What sets this system apart is how it moves and bends. Instead of being one solid board, it folds out like an accordion. That lets it lie flat across ruts, packed snow, sand, or ice without needing much digging. Because it can bend along its length, it fits into tight spots where stiff boards can be awkward to place. The curved groove pattern also helps guide the tool under the tire as the vehicle starts to move, so it stays lined up instead of shifting sideways. When a vehicle is stuck, the tool is placed directly in front of or behind the tire that's spinning. As the driver applies gentle throttle, the tire rolls onto the grooves. The top grips the tire tread, while the bottom presses into the surface below, which helps reduce wheel spin and allows the vehicle to move forward slowly rather than lurching. This setup started as a way to tie animals in open areas where there aren't fences. The raised tie point lets them move around in a circle without wrapping the line around the base. Over time, people found other ways to use it, especially in situations where they need a temporary anchor and there's nothing nearby to hook onto. The way it works is pretty simple. You lift the sliding weight and let it drop to push the anchor into the soil. After a few solid hits, the tip sinks deep enough to hold tension. When you're done, you use that same sliding motion in reverse to help pull it back out. One of the more common uses is vehicle recovery. If a vehicle is stuck and there's no tree or other solid object around, this can act as a ground anchor for a winch line. How well it holds depends a lot on the type of soil and how carefully it's placed, so it's something you pay attention to as you apply tension. It stands about 64 inches tall, is 13 inches wide, and weighs around 55 pounds, so it's not something you casually toss around. The lower section that goes into the ground is about 32 inches long and made from thick steel. Here's another device designed for super heavy off-road equipment, Bluetracks. They got their unusual name because the designers at Pewag chose to paint them blue. This forestry track system is built from hardened steel links with moderate spacing, roughly a few inches apart. The system is compatible with common forestry tire sizes ranging from 30 to 37 inches and uses replaceable locking components available in several lengths depending on the specific setup. The cross members are offered in two main thickness options, each matched to tire size, and all connecting parts are surface hardened to slow wear over time. Optional tensioners are also available for different configurations with weights listed in pounds. Bluetracks are produced in versions suitable for bogie axles, single wheels, and skidders. In practical use, this track system acts as a general solution for forestry machines like harvesters, forwarders, and skidders. Instead of focusing on one extreme condition, it aims to balance grip and tire protection. The spacing between links helps spread the machine's weight while still letting the traction elements dig in where needed. Engineers from the USA took a completely different approach to the problem, designing a solid, one-piece construction known as the Pull-Pal land anchor. The physics behind this triangular anchor are simple but effective. The more force applied to it, the deeper it digs into the ground, which makes the test footage especially impressive. This ground anchor is essentially a heavy-duty metal tool used when a vehicle becomes stuck, and there's nothing to attach a winch to. In wide-open environments such as deserts or muddy roads with no trees, it provides a reliable anchor point, giving drivers something solid to pull against when winching themselves free. The anchor folds down so it doesn't take up a ton of space, and different sizes exist depending on how big and heavy the vehicle is. Smaller versions are easier to handle, while the larger ones use wider blades and extra side pieces to get more grip in the ground. Some blades have holes in them, which helps with suction in dense dirt, and also lets you run a chain or lock through it when it's not being used. Using it is pretty simple once you understand how it works. You place the blade into the ground at an angle, pointing away from the vehicle, and hook your winch line to it. When you start winching, the blade doesn't get dragged toward you. Instead, it digs itself deeper into the dirt or snow. The more you pull, the more it buries itself, which is what makes it hold. The Bog Out Kit makes getting your vehicle out of the mud a simple, everyday task, completely replacing the need for a winch. It's hard to imagine a simpler or more effective tool for rescuing a vehicle in tough conditions. The system works by connecting heavy-duty straps together like a ladder and attaching them to a solid anchor point such as a tree, allowing controlled, powerful recovery with minimal effort. This recovery system can pull with approximately 7,000 pounds of force using a 15-foot synthetic harness made from low-stretch webbing and braided line designed to hold up under heavy loads. It fits tire widths from roughly 6.5 to 13.5 inches and works with most passenger vehicles. The idea behind it is pretty simple. Instead of bolting on a winch, it uses one of your driven wheels to do the pulling. The price of the kit varies, depending on the length of the straps, ranging from $169 to $435. The Motor Winch Jack is perfect for riders who can't lift their motorcycle out of the mud on their own. It even breaks down into several aluminum tubes for easy transport. When fully assembled, it stands just less than 4 feet tall. Yet when taken apart, the pieces fit neatly into a small bag. Depending on the configuration, the entire setup weighs around 5 pounds. At the top, a built-in pulley helps guide the lift, while a ratchet near the middle works together with a long fabric strap to provide controlled lifting power. The idea behind it is pretty simple. When a big motorcycle tips over, lifting it by hand can be risky, especially if you're alone. Instead of trying to muscle the bike upright in one move, this tool lets you raise it little by little. You attach the strap to a solid part of the motorcycle, often the handlebar, since those are easy to reach when the bike is on its side. Then you start working the ratchet. Each click pulls the strap tighter and brings the bike closer to standing up. Because the lift happens in small steps, it gives you time to react and adjust as the bike moves. You can also change the height by using fewer or more tube sections, which helps when there isn't much room around the bike. The price is $251. Instead of relying on ropes and winches, the next invention takes a different approach. These tracked CPT rigs are heavy machines, weighing around 40,000 pounds in the rubber-tracked version and approximately 39,000 pounds in the steel-tracked model. Their substantial mass allows them to generate pushing forces of roughly 33,000 to nearly 40,000 pounds. Depending on the configuration, the rigs can travel at speeds ranging from about 2 to 9 miles per hour. The rubber-tracked unit features tracks just over 11 feet long and about 2.5 feet wide, with a jack clearance of roughly 8 inches. These machines are used on sites where wheeled CPT trucks struggle to get around. Because they run on tracks, they can move across soft soils and sensitive surfaces without the need for prepared access roads. The wide tracks spread the weight out, which helps limit surface marks while still giving enough resistance to push the cone into the ground. In terms of what they do, the crawlers handle standard CPT and CPTU testing along with more specialized work. That includes seismic CPT, pressure meter support, magnetometer-related testing, video cone work, wing cone tests, and push-in-vane shear tests. The hydraulic system controls how fast and how hard the cone is pushed, which helps keep test results consistent.